They found him in the desert light, bronze-skinned, draped in crimson, face painted with the dust of sacred ash. He was not yet 14, and already they called him a god. His name was Varius Avitus Bassianus, but Rome would only ever remember him as Elagabalus, named after the black conical stone of the sun god he worshipped, a stone that did not speak, but demanded blood. He came not from Rome, but from the burning sands of Emesa, in the far forgotten corner of Syria. There, in a temple echoing with chants of eunuchs and the rhythm of sacrificial drums, the boy was not raised to rule, he was raised to embody divinity. High priest of Elagabal, god of light and fire, sex and sky. Every morning he danced before the altar, his hands slick with oil, his voice trembling in ecstasy. Rome, by then, was already broken. Caracalla was dead, murdered in the fields. The throne trembled. Power had turned to smoke, and through the cracks a woman emerged, Julia Emesa, grandmother to the boy, sister to the empress. She wore her mourning like armor, and plotted revenge, not with swords, but with incense and whispers. She told the legions, "This boy is the son of Caracalla, the son reborn, the rightful heir." The soldiers, tired of lies, believed, or maybe they simply wanted to believe in something. In the year of the consuls Maximus and Severus, what the poets would later call the year of the sun's coronation, Elagabalus entered Rome behind a black veil. He did not bow, he did not salute, he did not speak Latin, but the people watched. He brought with him a stone, a meteorite, worshipped as the living soul of the sun. He placed it atop the Palatine Hill, declared it the center of the universe. He wore robes of gold, perfumes of jasmine and goat musk. He refused the imperial laurel, chose instead a circlet braided from his mother's hair. He was crowned emperor, but he had no interest in laws, no patience for diplomacy. He was not a ruler, he was a ritual. In his first decree, he abolished the worship of Jupiter. He said, "The gods of Rome are dust, old ghosts clinging to fading marble." He crowned his god Elagabal, the supreme deity of the empire. Rome would now bow eastward. The Senate sputtered, the priests recoiled, but the people still watched. He wore makeup thicker than the Vestal virgins, bathed in rose petals, dined with slaves, called them brothers. His mother, Julia Emesa, stood behind him always, draped in black and rubies, watching, listening. If Elagabalus was the sun, she was its gravity. Together, they reshaped Rome, not into a state, but into a stage. Every night, music poured from palace windows, flutes, tambourines, moaning prayers. Every morning, a new law, stranger than the last. Men ordered to wear veils, statues dressed in silk, executions staged as sacred plays. A senator wrote, "The city no longer sleeps. We live in a temple, and the gods are mad." But it had only just begun. The empire had crowned a child who thought he was a god. And when you crown a child who thinks he is a god, the gods real or imagined tend to notice. At first, they thought it was performance, just another layer in the boys' theater of divinity. But then the priests confirmed it. Then the edict came. Then the drums began. The emperor was to be married again, his fourth bride. Or was it fifth? Names no longer mattered. Titles melted in his court like wax under desert sun. But this time, he would marry his mother. Rome convulsed. Julia Emesa, elegant, silent mother of the emperor, was to be crowned, not empress dowager, not consul's lady, but divine consort of the sun. The ritual, Elagabalus insisted, was not carnal, no, it was celestial. A reenactment, he claimed, of the sacred union between sun and earth, fire and womb, light and mirror. And if the mirror happened to be his own blood, so be it. He said it plainly before the Senate. I am the sun. She is the mother of the sun. What could be more sacred than the sun returning to its source? Beneath the temple of Elagabal, where incense choked the air and the walls bled with oil, the ritual was conducted in secret. Julia entered veiled. Elagabalus wore a gown of gold scales that clung to his frame like skin. The black meteor, the living soul of the sun, was placed between them. They danced. They anointed each other. They whispered names no Roman had ever spoken. When it was done, they emerged as one. He no longer called her mother. He called her bride. She never objected, not in word, not in gesture. Her silence, as always, was the sharpest dagger in the room. Whispers swirled like flies. Some said the boy emperor had truly lost his mind, that he believed himself to be both man and woman, son and womb, father and child. Others believed it was strategy, that by marrying Julia Soemius, he bound her power more tightly to his own, turning maternal authority into divine submission. But there was something darker, something that seeped between the columns at night. He began performing rituals none had seen before, sacrifices without name. Boys with golden hair brought to the temple at dusk, never seen again, singing in a language that made the marble statues weep. Animals dismembered and arranged in spiral shapes across the forum. Dancers painted in blood, their eyes rolled back. He ordered the statues of Jupiter, Mars, even Augustus, their heads removed, nursing from the breast of a veiled woman who bore his own face. In their place, images of his black stone. On one temple wall, he painted a mural, himself as a radiant queen, crowned in blood. One senator reportedly stabbed out his own eyes after seeing it. In the palace, mirrors multiplied, dressed in lace and linen, whispering to his reflection. Every corridor, every bedchamber, every bath lined with glass. Elagabalus would walk among them at night. Who is the bride now? The city turned gray. Markets closed early. Prayers stopped mid-verse. At night, mothers drew their children close and whispered old Roman names, hoping they might remember who they once were. Still, the emperor ruled. Still, the mother queen watched. Then had his guards dressed in nothing but it been, and every decree grew more chaotic. He outlawed circumcision, then reinstated it. He banned the wearing of leather. He made a senator dress as a dog and bark through trials. He declared himself pregnant with the child of Mars. But always, beneath the madness, there was that calm, unwavering face, his mother. Her eyes followed him through every delirium, never blinking, never afraid. She was the stillness beneath his storm, or perhaps the storm behind his stillness. And somewhere, far from the palace, Rome's heart began to rot. The Praetorian Gartha Empire's muscle and memory started to murmur. The Senate sharpened its prayers, and the people, once entranced, began to turn their eyes away from the temple's fires. Because even in a city of gods and madness, some unions should not be witnessed, and some weddings, no matter how divine, reek not of love, but of fate begging to be severed. By the 3rd year of his reign, the air in Rome had grown heavy, not with incense or blood, but with waiting. The city no longer feared its emperor. It awaited his collapse, like a fever that must break, or a storm too long withheld. The Senate had become theater. Senators arrived not to legislate, but to watch the boy in silk perched on his throne like a swan with claws, to watch him dismiss petitions by rolling dice, to watch him feed grapes to chained consuls, and laugh when they wept. He had replaced the imperial guards twice, once for failing to kneel fast enough, and again for being too silent during his sacred recitations. He brought in Eastern mercenaries, men who bowed to no Roman god but to a black stone. It was then that the old gods began to whisper. Lightning struck the temple of Jupiter. A raven nested on the Capitolium and refused to leave. The river turned red with algae, and the augurs reading the entrails of sacrificed cattle saw nothing, no pattern, no future, just blood blank and endless. Still, Elagabalus danced. He married again, a man this time. A charioteer named Heracles declared him Empress of Rome. Then Agena, priest of Attis, called the father of my unborn spirit. He wore bridal veils in public ceremonies. He demanded that his body be pierced and reshaped in devotion to the goddess Cybele. He spoke of wombs and rebirth, and told the Senate, "The sun sets in the west because I have turned east." But the sun was beginning to flicker. Rumors spread that the treasury was empty, that temples had been stripped of gold to fund new perfumes, new mirrors, new altars, that boys disappeared into the palace and re-emerged as shadows, that Julia Soemius now spoke in tongues. The Praetorian Guard brooded in catacombs. They whispered old names, names with order, names without lipstick: Severus, Alexander, Augustus. And then came the final insult. Elagabalus proclaimed that Rome itself was impure, that it must be purified in flame. Old statues melted, old scrolls burned, old names forgotten. He ordered the ashes of Nero exhumed and scattered, declared the Forum a whore's courtyard, renamed it the womb of the sun, paraded through the streets in a chariot drawn by naked priests, scattering petals soaked in goat's blood. The people turned their backs, markets emptied, doors locked before sunset. Even his mother drifted, appearing only in ritual, never in council. Her eyes searched the shadows. In desperation, Elagabalus summoned all the gods. He held a feast for every known deity, placing their icons in rows, demanding they swear fealty to Elagabal. The feast lasted 7 days. On the 8th, the palace burned. Still, he smiled. The end did not come from rebellion. It came from suggestion. A cousin, Alexander Severus, young, proper, Roman, promoted, a co-emperor, they said, a helper. But everyone knew he was the replacement. Elagabalus raged, tore his gowns, smashed his mirrors, demanded Julia poison the boy. She refused. The empire had chosen. A vote whispered in the barracks. One night, one knife, one ending. Elagabalus sensed it. He locked himself in the temple, screamed to the stone, painted sigils on his skin with wine and honey, dressed in the bridal gown once more, and called for his mother. She came, she knelt, she wept. When the guards burst in, they found them like that. 2 bodies cloaked in silken oil, weeping into each other's shoulders, as if no empire had ever existed. No last words, no final curse, just quiet. The blood, the same shape carved into the altars of forgotten gods. At dawn, their bodies were dragged through the streets, not carried, not hidden, dragged, hair tangled in mud, silk torn like butcher's cloth. Elagabalus and his mother, once gods of the palace, now silent offerings to a city that had closed its eyes too long. The people did not cheer, they did not mourn, they simply watched, as if waking from a fever, unsure whether the visions they had seen were dream or judgment. The bodies were stripped, the divine gowns set ablaze, the sacred mirrors shattered. The black stone, the living heart of the sun, was returned to Syria, sealed in a temple never spoken of again. Their corpses were thrown into the Tiber, the river that forgets everything. Rome tried to forget. To the Senate issued damnatio memoria, the condemnation of memory. All statues of Elagabalus were destroyed, his name scratched from every scroll, chiseled off every marble, drowned in silence. Even the coins were melted. The face that once shimmered on gold, now melted into namelessness. But marble remembers. In hidden corners of the Palatine, masons found carvings they could not explain, spirals etched into foundations, sun-discs beside weeping veils. In one servant's corridor, beneath plaster, a faint inscription remained, Bride of the Sun. No one claimed to have written it. Alexander Severus ruled in Elagabalus' place. He was young, modest, Roman. He worshipped Jupiter, wore plain togas, smiled without perfume. Rome exhaled. The fever broke, but the walls had changed. Priests dreamed of mirrors that bled, of veiled women whispering from fountains. A Vestal virgin swore she saw a boy dancing in her cell, golden dust in his hair, speaking in tongues older than Latin. She was executed for heresy. Years passed, then decades, then centuries. Elagabalus became myth, then a joke, then a riddle whispered in academic halls. Historians called him a pervert, a lunatic, a blasphemer. They debated. Was he truly mad, or simply too strange for Rome's order? They questioned. Was the marriage to his mother literal, symbolic, imagined? They missed the point. He was not trying to destroy Rome. He was trying to become something Rome could not imagine. Not man, not woman, not emperor, not priest, not ruler, not slave, but a bridge between things, between sun and blood, between child and God, between power and surrender. And like all bridges, he was eventually torn down. Some say, if you walk the banks of the Tiber at night, during the last week of July, when the sun is lowest, you might see two figures in the river, draped in silk, dancing in a spiral, smiling. No empire survives forever, but some emperors refuse to die quietly. And in the cracks between history and nightmare, their whispers still echo, soft, shimmering, and mad.